Welcome to the iPhone 12 Pro review. Alright, so to kind of simplify things, I'm just going to go ahead and say it that I really enjoyed using this phone. The experience with an iPhone, as per usual, is very flawless, and this one was kind of the exact same thing. It's always nice to use, and of course it feels very nice, which I'll talk about a little bit more. But something that I do have to mention first is, yes, it's a review, so I'm going to look at this phone as an individual phone, but first I do have to say that the reality is I could have made one review for both the 12 and 12 Pro. They are that similar. They are almost identical. There's very few differences, and so a lot of what I say in the 12 review applies here, and there's a lot of me repeating myself. But it's an individual phone, and I'm going to look at it that way and really see what it's capable of. But my first point to make is, with the exception of the front, because I don't really like the design of the notch, I think it's my favorite design phone of the year. I mean, it's definitely up there at least, because it looks really good, and there's no denying that. Every single one of the models has a matte finish, which is a really small request I have for every company, and I don't understand why they don't do it, but whatever. The matte finish looks so clean. The stainless steel, I thought I would dislike it because of the fingerprints, which is a fact, by the way. There's a lot of fingerprints that you can kind of see. It's like a fingerprint magnet, but I still really liked it because it adds this really premium feel, premium design, looks very nice, and you can tell that it's just a nice phone, excluding the fact that it's got an Apple logo on there. I also really like that camera bump. I remember when we first saw the leak on the 11 Pro for this sort of camera bump, and I did not like it at all. I thought it was a bad idea, but now it turns out I really like the design. It looks so refined and just so clean, and in person, like the 11 Pro, I thought it looked really nice, and if you liked what was on the 11 Pro there, that looks just as nice. So it's so refined, and it shows the engineering that's gone into this phone, and therefore the high quality and premium aspect to it. And with that design, as I did mention really briefly earlier, is it feels very premium when you're holding it. Genuinely one of the most, it feels like a slab of metal. And I think it's a big part of that is because of that stainless steel frame. Because even though the 12 has that same form factor, it doesn't feel as premium. And so the premium here comes from the stainless steel frame, but also from the weight. It is one of the heaviest phones I've used, and even though the 12 has the exact same form factor, the 12 is one of the lightest, but that doesn't have stainless steel. So there's weight here, there's a stainless steel frame, there's a matte back, and then because of those things combined, it feels super premium, and it's a relatively heavy phone. Just bear that in mind. But the way I would describe it is like a metal and glass sandwich, which is engineered very nicely. But then, something that is worth pointing out, it is a bit of a nitpick, but it is something that does kind of stick out, is it's not as comfortable to hold as a phone with rounded edges. 100% that is the case. But it's a small thing, it doesn't really matter. It shouldn't be the deciding factor for whether you get this phone or not. Now, something which is really nice about this phone is ceramic shield, basically meaning that it's 4 times more resistant to drops. Very nice. I don't know if that's how scientific or how accurate that is, but it's a cool thing to have there, whatever. But it does not mean it's resistant to scratches. In fact, I think it's less resistant to scratches now for whatever reason, because my 12 Pro has gotten filled with scratches on the back, and I don't know why. Every now and then I pull it out my pocket and I see a bunch of scratches. I don't know why. I'd never have this with phones. Maybe it's because I had the 11 Pro last year and I didn't have this issue, but maybe that was just because I had the white version last year and now I have the space gray version, so it seems like it's less resistant to scratches, whereas I don't know. But other than that, I love this size for a phone. It's the perfect balance. I really wish more phones were staying in this range, because you get the right size screen for being able to comfortably consume content in a nice immersive way, while being easy to put in your pocket and being easy to use with one hand, that kind of thing. Now, if you're looking for protection for any one of your iPhone 12s, Pro, 12, Mini, Max, then CaseCoo have sent me a really nice set of minimal cases. You got the matte blue minimal case, a slim matte black, minimal case, and then you got a clear case. Me personally, not really a fan of clear cases, and I'm generally not really a case guy, but if I was a case guy, I would be putting one of these on my phone. Probably the black one. Adds a nice amount of protection while not being bulky, looking good, and remaining pretty low profile. Anyway, I quite like these matte cases, and they're linked below if you're interested. They work with MagSafe, by the way. And by the way, I will be giving away all 3 of these cases to a lucky winner, and to enter, you only have to do 4 things. Number 1, give this video a like. Number 2, subscribe to the channel. Number 3, leave a comment saying hashtag I want this case. And don't forget to tag your Instagram because I need a way of contacting you if you win. And talking about Instagram, the final thing you have to do is follow me on Instagram. That's all you do. Once you've done that, you're set, you're in. And by the 22nd of December, I will have contacted the winner of this giveaway. Anyway, and now the display. The display is a really nice display. It's a very bright display as well. As per usual, Apple displays do look nice, but it does not have 120 Hz. Also kind of a con, especially if you're going to label a phone as Pro, then it should have 120 Hz. And coming from a 120 Hz phone, you definitely feel the 60 Hz, but it is the smoothest 60 Hz display I've used. And that's like with all iPhones, all new iPhones, because they have a really high touch response. And on top of that, while talking about the display, the haptics on this phone are on point. iPhone, best haptics I've ever used, hands down. Haptics are basically the vibrations you get when you interact with something on the phone, so it feels like a button, 3D touch kind of thing, not the vibrations you get when you get like a phone call. And to me, I've said this in like every review, that haptics kind of defines how premium a phone is for me, because in order to have good haptics, you have to have engineered the phone well. And so if it has nice haptics, then it's probably a really high quality phone. And this is a very, very good example of that. You'll find that with cheap phones, the haptics are trash. And then at the top of the display, you have Face ID. And I don't like Face ID. I've said this many times. I really dislike it because you got that mask situation now, which you can't blame Apple for that, but it's just an example of it being very, very annoying in nowadays environment. On top of that, when it's on a surface, it's a pain in the ass to turn on. I gotta like get my head over the phone, and then sometimes it doesn't work, and sometimes it does. Sometimes it will take a long time. Sometimes it will be really fast, but that's only like a portion of the time. I don't like Face ID. Touch ID would have been much, much, much better. I really wish Apple could go back to doing that. Now, I've said this with the 12, and I'm going to say it with the Pro, and I'm going to say it with every iPhone ever, that iOS is the key selling point for an iPhone, because while it has really nice hardware and all of that, the thing that makes it an iPhone is the software, because that's the unique thing that you don't find anywhere else. And iOS is so flawless. There's no gimmicks, there's no last minute features. It's made to be effortless. Every single frame of an animation is thought out well, and it turns out to look very, very nice. You don't feel like there's any gimmicks or bloatware on there. It feels super, super nice, and that's one of the reasons why people say that iOS is simpler, even though nowadays Android is like pretty much the same in terms of how easy it is to use. But iOS always gave off that vibe because it's done it so well, and it's always been so optimized, and that's the key thing. And whenever I use an Android, while I prefer that because of customization, I always do miss the fluidity that you get in iOS. The best competitor I would say is Oxygen OS 11. I haven't tried stock Android on the Pixel, but maybe that's good as well. But to sum it up, how would I describe iOS? I would say that everything that's executed is executed perfectly. But there's a lot more that can be executed because of that lack of customization. And with iOS comes the Apple ecosystem, which, let me tell you, it's like heaven, the Apple ecosystem. iCloud, it's amazing. It's so nice. I use a MacBook and I also use an iPad. I've just never really stuck to iPhones because I do prefer what I get with Androids. But having used an iPhone alongside my MacBook and iPad, it's like the best combination ever. What I found so amazing recently is whenever I copy something on my laptop, I can just paste it into my phone without even like a second thought. On top of that, AirDrop, it's legendary. AirDrop means I don't have to upload things to Google Photos and then re-download it from my Mac onto Google Photos and all of that. It's so seamless and effortless. And the way I can access my desktop and documents from my phone, that is also amazing. And there's so many other things with iOS which just make it so nice to use because of that Apple ecosystem, because of iCloud. So if you're using a MacBook, if you're using an iPad, I really recommend that you give the iPhone a few extra points against whatever you're competing it against, because it is a big difference in terms of the experience. But to be honest, while I am making a review, it is an iPhone. It's not like an Android where there are big differences in the experience. It is still an iPhone, and it's very similar to every other iPhone, well, most iPhones before it, especially recently. And so if you can kind of remind yourself of the experience with previous iPhones and then just add that to the additional comments that I made in this review, then that's kind of the experience that you're getting. It's not a whole lot different. Now, in terms of the power brick situation, I'm not happy about it, and I have a lot of criticism towards it. I'm all for helping the environment, but I don't think Apple did it the right way. And I'm not going to talk about that here because I talked about it in my unboxing. Go check it out if you're interested. But yeah, I did kind of like how thin the box was though. I thought that was kind of cool. But now, before we get onto the cameras, there comes battery life. And it's fine. It's not bad. It's like on average I'll get 5 hours, 15 minutes per day. It really isn't bad. Like I'll end the day with 20%, and that's super solid. After about 3.5 hours of usage, I was on 40%, but it does go downhill from there. And so yeah, that just kind of gives you an idea of the battery situation. I'm pretty sure it's like the same as last year, maybe a little bit worse even. I don't know. I'm not 100% sure here. But idea is, if you have a relatively new iPhone now, it's going to be pretty much the exact same battery experience with the iPhone 12 Pro. iPhone 12 Pro. But then for the cameras, now the cameras are really interesting here, or they're relatively interesting. First off, in terms of specs, you get a 12 megapixel wide camera, you get a 12 megapixel ultra wide camera, and a 12 megapixel 2x optical telephoto zoom camera. And it has a LiDAR sensor. That is basically a type of depth sensor where it can sense depth, basically meaning it can separate the subject and the background, which helps with portrait shots, and it also helps with AR because it has this 3D sense of what is where. So do I personally care about it? No, not really. But if you're into AR, if you care about that little extra enhancement in portrait shots, then yeah, it's a nice feature. And the ultra wide camera is the same across every single iPhone 12 model. The main sensor is unique to the iPhone 12 Pro, and then the telephoto is also unique to the 12 Pro. And it's an iPhone. It shoots really nice images, and their processing is really nice because they don't overdo things, they don't overdo the sharpening. They're very careful, and they keep things looking very clean and as close to possible as a professional camera, which I really respect about Apple. And so with their enhancements, you end up getting a really nice camera and really nice photos. But it has competitors when it comes to the photography aspect of the iPhone. There are phones you can look at and think, is it better, is it not, and you have to make a decision based on that. But when it comes to videos, I would say this guy is the king. If I wanted to make a video with an iPhone, I'm sure you wouldn't be able to tell, but you can make that judgment for yourself. Let's dive into some of the shots. So the dynamic range in the clouds look really nice, and the sharpening is on point as well because they don't overdo the sharpening. It's kept to a really nice subtle version of it, so it doesn't look like a smartphone camera. It looks a little bit more professional. And overall the shots are looking very good, but something about this phone is it doesn't have a very large sensor as opposed to some of the Androids that have come out this year, like the Note 20 Ultra, which has a pretty big sensor. Same with OnePlus, and so with those big sensors you're getting background blur when you look at a subject instead of having to use the portrait mode, which fakes the background blur. And so having a larger sensor would have been really nice. But when it comes to those portrait shots, the edge detection is pretty good, usually better than the average phone because of that LiDAR sensor, which, as I said, was a depth sensor. And then, as I said before, videos are really well done. The sharpening, the software processing, all of that is kept to a minimum, but it's done in the right way in which it looks pretty good. And it just looks like it could have been coming out of a professional camera, and that's at the end of the day what you're aiming for, and so I really like it. And as I was talking about a larger sensor earlier, that would have been really nice for product videography, because then if you're shooting a product, you get really nice background blur and it will look so natural and so good, and automatically when you have bokeh, a shot will look a lot more professional. So yeah, but other than that, it's a really nice camera. Videos are on point. So yeah, that was the camera. I hope you kind of made a judgment off of that. But that's kind of that. And then for my conclusion, well, this is it. £1,000 or $1,000 for 128 gigabytes. Now this is a good price point. What I never was able to justify was £1,000 or dollars for 64 gigabytes, because that's way too little. But 128 gigs, I'm not complaining. That's alright. You're getting a really nice phone here. That's the reality. But the question that I want to refer back to from the beginning is, you've got the 12, right? And the difference is the 12 doesn't have a LiDAR sensor, and it doesn't have a telephoto sensor. And that is about it. There's like really limited thing, like it has like less RAM or something like that, but it's pretty much the exact same phone. And that's why I then find it difficult to justify this. I mean, on its own, it's a good phone, and the price is kind of reasonable and fair considering today's standards. And then you got the 12 right there, which is almost exactly the same for less money. But if you do want that extra premium aspect to it, then yeah, go ahead, spend the extra 100 or 150 or whatever it is and get this 12 Pro as opposed to getting a 12. It does overall give you a nicer experience because of how it feels in the hand, because you have those extra things that you can use when you want to use them. But yeah, that's kind of my outlook on the 12 Pro. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and give a like and comment because that helps with the algorithm. I'm trying to get 10k by the end of the year, so if you could help me out there, that would be much appreciated. Check out my Instagram at El-Naggar for a behind the scenes perspective, and you know, you get to see me work my magic and do the cool things I do and how I do it, that kind of thing. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I appreciate you watching, and I will see you in the next one. Salam.